His Excellency the Governor, Mr. John Duncan, OBE and Mrs. Duncan, the Honorable Premier, Dr. Orlando Smith, members, let me acknowledge my good friend, Governor Charles Turnbull, members of the House of Assembly, members of the Virgin Islands Legislature, Senator Graham, Senator Marvin Blyden, Senator Kenny Giddens, Senator John Ford, and Senator Justin Harrigan. I don't think I'm missing any. Members of my cabinet, ladies and gentlemen, the wonderful people of the British Virgin Islands. It's a pleasure for me to be here sharing this wonderful day of friendship of the Greater Virgin Islands. In the Virgin Islands this weekend, starting at sunrise yesterday, and it will end at sunset on Sunday, across all of government houses in St. Thomas, Katrinburg, the Battery, Government House in Christiansted, and Government House in Frederiksted, we are flying the flag of the British Virgin Islands in honor of our BVI USVI Friendship. I pledged today, and I met the Honorable Premier, Dr. Smith. I believe it's August. I knew you, but I met you and we had a chance to talk and speak together in August at the races. And we had a wonderful time this morning speaking at the airport and here at the breakfast hosted by the governor. And let me publicly state my personal pledge and the pledge of the government of the Virgin Islands to continue to work with you and your government on issues of mutual interest, on trade, on friendship, and on the great people that make up the Greater Virgin Islands. I'm doing all of the formalities, and I want to have all the wonderful, proper English speak before I get to the ingenuity of the past, because I'm going there. The Virgin Islands is made up historically of people from different backgrounds, and on the St. Thomas, St. John end, many of our wonderful people, a great portion of our population and Virgin Islanders are from here, the British Virgin Islands. I hail from a Crucian family on the island of St. Croix, but let me tell you that my mother's mother, my grandmother, is the last of 16 children, the last 3 born on St. Thomas, but from the island of Jos van Dyke. Yes. Governor Turnbull says he will take me down to the appropriate office so I can get my Belonger card before I return to the Virgin Islands. So many of our people are from here, and this is why our relationship is so powerful, because we are blended. We celebrated, I believe 2 weekends ago, the wonderful friendship between the people of Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. And as you know, in St. Croix, our culture and our people are blended, many from the people that hailed from Vieques, Culebra, and the eastern end of Puerto Rico. I listened intently to this program, and Dr. Smith, I want you to know I really enjoyed the program this morning. I sat there next to you, and it brought tremendous memories and reflection for me. I have a couple of members of my family that are in the audience, some older than me and some younger. But I was born in Brooklyn from Crucian parentage. And in 1960, at the age of 5, in 1959, my mother got married in 1950, but in 1959, she got tired of the antics of my father and changed the locks and decided she would go back to school because she had 3 sons she needed to take care of. And so we got the fortunate opportunity to be sent to St. Croix with our grandmother to be raised. And while my grandmother came from these parts, she married a gentleman from Barbados, and they had a farm in St. Croix where they raised animals and grew fruit and vegetables. And when we arrived at the farm, we didn't have a break-in cycle. We had to learn the very next day about tying out goats and sheep and feeding pigs and ducks. And yes, the house was off the ground, and when chickens would go under the house and lay, the smaller, scrawny ones, we would have to crawl under there and get those eggs out of there and bring them out. And yes, the bottle that had the guava berry, we call it a Jimmy John. And that usually kept in the dark, but I think I know why now, because people didn't have a whole lot of guava berry. So they used to hide that. But we were raised in a way that, you know, the term that came out, I believe, some 20-odd years ago, and take nothing away from the author, about a village raising a child. We in this part of the world, that's exactly how we were raised. Adults spoke to children, and it mattered not that they weren't their parents or their family, and you could not be rude to an adult. You had to display manners, and you couldn't shame your families. You went to school, and your teachers, you know, when he was showing the wood and asking where it was and saying how ply it was, I said, that looked like something my grandmother used to get our attention with. And some of you in the audience know what I'm speaking about. And you really had to learn, and you had to have a bit of ingenuity. And, you know, we were given, I believe, around $1, my brothers and I, and we would be sent off on Saturdays to get our hair cut. And we used to go by a friend of the family named Miss Bannister on Saturdays, and she had a friend that today we would say visually impaired, but blind. And he had a barber cutting hair, and the barber was charging 50 cents. And my brother said, well, you know, when we go to Mr. Andu's, we have to pay $1, so let this gentleman cut our hair, and we could save the 50 cents, and then we could get squirrel nut and sugar cake and the whole 9 yards. Well, the barber was blind. And so he batched up our head, he cut my brother's ear with the scissors. And when we went back to Rattan, my grandmother was like, wait, what happened to these children? Anyway, for our punishment, we had to go to school with our batch up head and put the money that we saved in church on Sunday. But the way that this program displayed the culture and the tradition of our people is just so powerful. And this year in our budget cycle, the members of the legislature and the administration, we approved a $500,000 allotment to the Department of Education for the support of interscholastic competition between high school students. And the law says with specificity between the BVI, the USVI, and the children of Puerto Rico. And the purpose of doing that is, again, the purpose of doing that is, again, to get our younger people into knowing our histories and knowing that we have much more in common than we have differences. And when we were small, we traveled between the islands. We got to know each other. We got to know each other's family. And so when we had a disagreement, it could come down to a fisticuff because we knew who we were. Today, our children, our young people are growing up only on computers and smartphones and televisions. And we're not getting out there and really helping the children to get to know the differences between us are small. Getting to know the history between us are similar, that we really might sleep on different islands, but we have so much more in common than we have different. And so we are doing our part in the U.S. Virgin Islands, not just to speak about friendship at a particular time of year, but to be able to practice friendship. In the U.S. Congress, the Virgin Islands is pursuing legislation and law that gives us in the Virgin Islands and the people in the Caribbean sort of an exemption which we call the visa program that will allow us to move freely between our islands without having the formality of getting visas and all of the formal issues of entering our ports and harbors because we're just minutes apart. We have challenges that we're going to have to work on as the U.S. government works to secure the borders between Mexico and the United States. and we see on the fringes of the wall, everybody is going around the side. So what we're seeing is more drugs, more human trafficking in our region. And so it's going to call for more greater and closer collaboration between our government as we work to protect our people and to ensure that we have good free-flowing trade, lacking contamination and lacking the negatives of crime. And so, Dr. Smith, I look forward to getting to know you more. I look forward to spending more time in the BVI. And the young man, Grover Henry Cakes, from the Grover Henry Cakes, as you can see, you don't like to test and eat your food, but you could tell I like to test and eat anybody's food. So, and I will do it pro bono. You don't have to pay me. and my good friends, a couple of years ago, I'm not going to shame anybody in the VI, but you know, all of us have strengths in our own islands in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And in St. Croix, because we came off the farms last, we seem to have an extra knack and delicacy in how we prepare our foods. And this is proven in the fact that when our friends and brothers and sisters from St. Thomas and St. John visit St. Croix, you see them taking bags and bags of food, cooked food, back to St. Thomas. Now, when we Crucians visit St. Thomas and St. John, we get our jewelry and our camera and our electronics. I ain't gonna say no more about your food. But some friends of mine brought me here to the British Virgin Islands, I believe around 2006, and the Letsums are here with me today. And I like good food. And I know good food. This is not Taco Bell and Pizza Hut. None, not at all. And I hunt good pate. And in St. Thomas, when you buy a pate, they want to make sure you're full. So they have a little extra pound of dough with the pate. In St. Croix, we like crusty, thin pate. So we came here and they had the village, and we walk in the village, and my friend said to me, "You're going to find your pate up here." And I have to tell you that I've been buying your food here, and you could cook. You could really cook. So I don't know what happened between the BVI and St. Croix, but you got it down packed. So I look forward, Dr. Smith, for being here and working with you and working with your government as we grow closer, long history, mutual love and respect, work and challenges to be done. We do have some minor differences in our trade policies and our government, but on our local level, those are issues that we can work through and make sure that our national government understand that these differences have to be dealt with in the context that we are relatives, that we are family, and that we are very good friends. So I commend the BVI contingent on putting this powerful program together. Dr. Smith, the Master of Ceremonies, I would recommend strongly that you get your Jimmy Jam out of here before the benediction, because there's some people sitting behind me that is already making plans for Mrs. Smith's guava berry. I want to thank all of you. We're having a wonderful time. And Dr. Smith, Governor Duncan, thank you so much for being such fabulous hosts, treating us so well, and making it so warm and welcoming. Good afternoon.